I think we're recording. I didn't hear her say it. I didn't hear her say it. She usually says recording in progress. But I think we're recording. Welcome, bienvenidos to all of you to this episode of the Cultural Capacity Podcast, Featured Voices, where once a month we get to spotlight someone who is doing incredible things and learn a little bit more about their cultural origin story. And when we say that, we simply mean exploring what are the norms, their beliefs, their values, some of their own stories of learning throughout the years, and what can we learn from their stories of their lived experiences. So I'm really excited to have another incredible guest here who recently became a published author. The name of her book that she has co-authored is Voices of the 21st Century, Women Empowered Through Passion and Purpose. I love the cover. And I also, like, when I read that title every time, I'm like, oh, I gotta read that book. So she had just come out with a book, but we also, how we met, and I like to give context. I want to say thank you first to our community here. We have been continuously putting out new content, and our team here at Educator Aid can't thank you enough for hitting subscribe, following our guests on their respective platforms, and continuing to support just the mission of understanding our awareness when it comes to culture and communication, and how we communicate with each other, how we learn from each other's stories. So all of that to say, we are here. And without further ado, I always like to give guests their flowers, Kashaun, and our guest today, Ms. Parker, is no different. We met through National Speakers Association. I recently joined in fall of 2023, and for you all to understand, she's actually the first person that I really conversed with and spoke with at length in National Speakers Association. And y'all know I love to talk on this podcast. I love human interactions, studying them, researching them, learning through them. And we just had a phenomenal conversation that I was very moved by. I was just very impressed by you, not only as a human being, but as a mother, the mother that you are, and just parts of your story that you were willing to share. We definitely bonded over grief right away. There were some elements of grief bonding there, but I'm here for it. And I'm just so delighted that you took some time out of your busy life as an author, a speaker, a mother, a business owner, to stop by the podcast. And so without further ado, I wanted to give you those flowers and just tell you, I know I've said thank you in our group, but also to hear on the podcast for people to know it means the world when we join organizations, associations, no matter what your age, no matter what your background, it means the world when you have that human connection with somebody, and it just makes it all the more fun in your learning journey. So I know we were just conversing about some classes we're in and all of that, but it definitely helps in forging your journey. So I just wanted to add that as a professional tidbit. I have found that to be really healthy. If you are looking for new ways to connect with people, you don't have to go online or anything like that. You can actually join a local chamber of commerce or an association of some sort. You're gonna connect with some like-minded people. So without further ado, Kashaun Parker, if you could also introduce yourself to our audience the way you prefer to introduce yourself, and we'll learn a little bit about you today.
Absolutely. Justine, thank you. And thank you for those flowers. I take them all and I cherish them. You are such a gem. Hello, everyone. My name is Kashaun Parker. I am a speaker, published author, and coach. And part of what I do is really around the idea of empowering our women and our youth to navigate and then take control, take charge in some form of what it is they're doing in their lives. As we are, I'm sure, going to dive into our conversation today, it's really the backbone, the heart, and the crux of what I do, my mission, my purpose, and my gift back has been through just the fabrics and the fibers of my story. So I use it as my own motivator and inspiration, and then I teach others to do the same. So I'm happy to be here, excited for this conversation, and yes, let's dive right in.
We're here. We're here. So at the end, as you all know, and make sure you always check the show notes, we always share direct links. So we will be linking Kashaun's website, her book. So if you always want to skip to that and you go, I want to see who this is, make sure that you check out the show notes, because that is where we link and we put the person's bio, who we are featuring. Let's hop into it. So one of the questions that I love to ask our guests, and we will start with this, it's kind of backwards design, is getting into the mind of little you. So when you think back to little Kashaun, when you're 7 or 8, what's a principle that we should know about you? So before we dive into more conversation together today, what's a principle that when you think back, you go, yeah, that's something one of my grandparents taught me, or that's something my dad taught me, or whatever the thing is. And you go, that's a principle that it was really important to me and I learned when I was a kid. And if I really examine who I am today, that's still me. That's still me. What would be one of those principles for you? I think all of us have a lot of them. If we really examined it, and we would find, no, we're not so different from who we were when we were little.
Not so
Um,
different.
what's one of those principles, guiding principles for you that was there for little Kashaun and now it's still there in your life?
Oh my. That, because that's a loaded question, Justine. That's it's good. It's good though. Um, I think the one that stands out the most to me is to have fun. My
Mm,
guided principle is always around life can be serious, things can get serious, but where are you dancing? Where are you taking the time to enjoy and really have a good time with yourself, laugh at yourself, you know what I mean? And just take the layers off. Um, and so when I can get in moments where I'm able to do that, where I'm able to have fun and um really not worry about performing, but just
ooh,
be, I have the best time. And I can see little Kashaun in that. And I can see the girl that just didn't have a care in this world. It
mm,
didn't matter. And
mm.
I'm able to realize, okay, that's that connection. That's the true authentic me. I can go and put on everything else later. But for right now, I am enjoying it. I'm in my zone, I'm in my lane, and it's just having fun.
Well, that's the interview. So that's it. That's all the advice you need. Um, what? Wow. Okay. So let's break it apart, because you're a very talented coach. You're now
Mhm.
author, and this is your jam. So if you have people come to you, Kashaun, and I say, how do I get back to that? I've been in corporate, I've been wearing these masks for years, and I will tell our listeners know I tell on myself a lot here. I'll tell on myself with this. When I came out of being in school administration, because of the way how I was trained, because of the settings I was in, they always felt much more high stakes, right? They were often some pressurized situations or being a part of turning around schools, etc. And one of the things is, if you would have said that to me probably 15 years ago, I would have felt like, well, no, I have fun. Like, I probably wouldn't have been aware, like, Justine, you're actually kind of a workaholic and you're driving yourself into the ground and you're causing yourself a lot of problems. I would have been blissfully ignorant to it because I really felt, but this is my purpose and this is what I'm supposed to do. If this is my purpose, then I should be willing to give 15, 16 hours a day. How do you help people through your coaching practices and just your own lived experiences of tapping back into that? When I'm there, all the layers are off, because there would have been a time too, in my 20s in particular, I would not have been able to even like look at myself in a mirror and like laugh at myself or say affirmations. And I'm saying that I put myself out there a lot on this podcast. Whoever hears it, you're not alone. It took me years, from body issues, I'll say in particular body issues and different assaults I survived. It took me until probably 2 or 3 years ago and doing extensive hypnotherapy to even want to look at myself naked in a mirror.
Mm.
So I'm going in with it.
Let's do
I
it.
use myself as an example because I know for certain many humans go through those same two things of going, I can't even like unbutton this blazer in the mirror and feel normal. I can't even laugh at myself. I can't look at myself naked. How do you help people start with that? Very loaded. You go whatever directions you feel led. But how do you start, and where it's not maybe the extreme where people I'm sure could have said, yeah, you should probably go talk to a therapist about that happened. like if that's not your situation, but you just know you're not happy and you're not really having fun in life, where do I start?
Mm, that's a great question. And when I'm working with women, the idea is, first of all, after a couple conversations, you won't even have to tell me that you're not having fun. I'll be able to see it, right? And then, but then it becomes, well, now, are you ready to tell yourself the truth?
Oh,
Are you ready to get honest with yourself, right? And I always tell my clients, I'm not going to take you on a journey that I haven't had to go on.
mm,
And, for me, Justine, it was literally walking and looking at myself in the mirror and not knowing the woman that was looking back at me.
yep. I've
I
had that.
mean, to accolades, career success, like all of the,
Forget the
it looked
titles and
great.
what the world thinks they see.
Yes.
Yeah.
But looking at me, I'm like, how did we get here?
Mm-hmm.
How did this happen? And I'm not smiling. I'm not smiling from the inside out.
Mm,
I know how to put it on to go outside and show, but I mean, really radiating. So how do I even begin? Where do I start? And the one thing I always do is say, this is where you partner with somebody to unpack it. Where did you tell yourself it wasn't okay? Where did you tell yourself I can't have, there's no room to have fun. I got too much stuff to do.
yep.
I gotta be here for this. I need to show up here. I should have be put together by now. So you're wearing all these things, you're wearing all these expectations, and somewhere you got to be safe to take it all off. And then you decide, well, now what do I want to put on? What feels right?
Mm, mm-hmm.
What feels right to me? Where can I dance with this thing? Where can I laugh at myself? I did something stupid the other day. It's like, but I'm not. So listen, that language is specific, it's targeted. I am not calling myself stupid. I
Mm,
did something stupid, completely
mm-hmm.
different, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so because I know I'm not owning it like that, I get to laugh at it and like, that was dumb. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
And
now I
that's
can
what
laugh at
happens
it.
when you start to get a little lighter. You lighten the load that you're carrying and maybe wearing, I guess, for lack of a
Yes,
better way of, because we all show it in different ways. For
you
me,
show it.
that's gonna manifest as I'm probably eating too many carbs and I'm looking a little too puffy. Like for
Yes,
all of us, there's different ways that that's gonna manifest, and that might change over your life too. And so I think it's important that you still know that center to go back to before you really lose it. Because I say that coming from a place of having some genuine fears throughout my 30s here of like, I don't know if you're going to get her back. And that sometimes it's not bad because we're supposed to evolve. But to go back to your soul and know that 8-year-old joy and that young person joy, that's really who we are. And so when you start to have those thoughts, when we go through these very big things in life, and I know for both of us, that's involved a lot of grief, that when you look in the mirror and you have that moment and you really have those, I don't know if I'm going to get them back. Where is that person in there? That's probably the time, like it's probably like urgent that you need to maybe talk with somebody or figure that out. Would you
and
would you also say that? Because to me, it's taken getting to those breaking points and do like just it's probably always an opportune time to work on yourself.
it is.
But
But here's the thing. I think that, you do get to a point where you say, how am I going to get back to that? And or you don't even give yourself the non-negotiable of like, I need to get back to that.
Yeah.
This for me, this is not for anybody else. This is for me. I know why this matters. I know why, for me, I said to have fun. I'm so much lighter. I'm so much more productive. I'm so like I'm fun to be around because I'm having fun. But when I'm not, oh man, it's a whole drill sergeant.
Yeah, me too.
It's not pretty. Yes. And so it's like, when you start to think, well, can I get her back? I have every reason. I'm bought in. I need her back.
Yeah.
I need her in this space because girlfriend knows how to do some things. She is fun to be with. I mean, and she's going to get the things done because here's the result of it is you're always going to do the things that you need to do.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
going to do it. So
Yep.
why not figure out how to get back to the core, your core value? Mine is fun. So how do I get back to fun so that I can do it and enjoy myself while I'm doing it? So
Mhm.
it's not, I'm not negotiating that. I want that. That's a desirable for me. I'm bought into the outcome of it. I want it. But if yours is, what is yours? What is your non-negotiable? I'm
Right.
not I'm not playing around here. It's not for sale. It's not for trade. I'm getting to this. And then you'll do the work. So then you'll hire somebody. Then
Yeah.
you'll go in and you'll start talking about it. You'll have the conversations because you understand what you're getting to and it's for you.
Yes. Yeah. And I've talked about this on some other episodes too. I can't say enough good things about trying new experiences. And when you go in with an open mind, you also, from a neuroscience perspective, you're going to rapidly increase new neural pathways. That's literally, if we boil down what going out of your comfort zone means. From a neurological standpoint, I have to put myself into an environment that's different than my own. It's different than my daily routine. So the only caveat I'll give is one that you often might hear, which is know your threshold. And to your point, know why. I think when I've tried things in the past that were maybe premature or I didn't see the value or necessity in my own journey, I couldn't appreciate them the same way. I couldn't appreciate yoga the same way in my 20s that I do now in my 30s because I was a different person even up here of and not that I
Mhm.
don't still struggle with that at times. It's just a different self-regulation that you learn how if you are aware of it. Many of us go through life and then we wake up one day and we go, well, life just happened. No, life does not just happen to anyone. We all have to pull on, like Kashaun said, go pull your little self and say, hey man, hey lady, come on. You're forgetting who you are. And I think that when you have those moments and you're open to it, that's when I've found very, very rapid healing. My caveat is it's tough work. So for me
Oh,
to sit
absolutely.
here and try to say, oh yeah, it was so easy to go into hypnotherapy and do a past life regression and for 3 hours. No. And then to do the audios where you're retraining your brain every night. So you're not thinking of yourself a certain way because of something you've gone through. Those are things I'm laying this out for you all because when you begin your different journey, I don't want you to feel defeated with whatever journey that looks like. And I know myself, I've tried things premature because somebody over here said, oh, this worked for me. It was so good. Well, that didn't work for me. Not at that time. So that's the other need of how do you what advice would you give to people who are also searching for that? So maybe they've already identified, I need to go get that little girl. I need to go get that little boy. I'm getting too far away from who they are. When you are aware of that and you say, I'm open, from there, if I'm open, I'm aware that I have some things maybe I want to work on, or there's one thing I want to work on. I encourage people one thing at a time, but
Yep.
because it's a lot. But if they say, I don't even know when you say personal development and these journeys, right? Like this is all new to me. If somebody's there, but they're primed to it, what would you advise then? Like what is the key to staying consistent? Because I also see there's huge waves of many, many people who are realizing I don't have the life that I want. I'm not happy. And I know I need to do something about it, but I'm maybe not sure how to do that. but they're aware of it. So there's a difference, I think, in journey when you're aware of it, but then still feeling stuck. What if I'm a person who's aware of it? I know there's different maybe therapies, there's different coaches. What should I start with if I've never done anything?
Mm.
Do you have anything that you consistently find yourself recommending to clients, specifically women, as far as like journaling? Like to me, that's been a tried and true thing that has really helped and worked for me over the years. And I know in my thought patterns, in my inner voice, if I haven't been doing that.
Okay. Oh, I love it. I love it. This is good. So, okay, I'm gonna be very open and transparent here with this. Earlier on, one of the most challenging obstacles that I had to overcome was myself. I fought journaling. I had my coach. She was like, "Oh, you. There's no way you're coming in here and you're remembering all this." I was like, "I got it," and I would not write. I would not
This one
write. And
or
yes,
this one or
oh,
this one or this one. Okay, let me stop.
listen, they're a mile high now, right?
Collections.
And so she's like, she says, "Listen, the idea is it's not a task, but you need somewhere for it to go. You need somewhere for it to process. And so to get it out, right? And so now I lead with that. Because again, my premise is I'm not going to take anybody on a journey that I haven't had to go on. So when I get a woman they're like, I'm ready, I'm willing. And then we go into, well, what are you doing? Because
Right.
that's always the next step.
Yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
hope you understand it. But what are you doing?
You're right.
And usually it's, oh, well, I went to go sit down and write, but I didn't know what to write. I went to go talk to someone, but I'm not sure that they could really help me. So now you got to get out your own way. You got to be willing to get out your own way and then figure out what's the excuse. What is the excuse that has you kind of bought into staying where you are? You see,
Mm,
the transformation happens when you can clear out all that stuff. And no matter if you told me to walk on a hot bed of coals, I would do it because I know that what I need is on the other side.
yeah.
I
You
have no more excuses. And to be honest, that's like some of the hardest challenges that women have. They'll go to war for someone else, but they won't do it for themselves.
there it is.
They won't bet on themselves, they won't gamble on themselves. They will negotiate to the wire for them. But for their kids, they'll be non-negotiable. They'll
Mhm.
do whatever it takes. And I said, well, what's different? You're the head. So if the head is not in shape, what do you expect for everything else to, how do you expect it to follow? Um, but it also takes a realization of now what are you actively going to do? And now getting them to see the tangible benefit. So for me, I had to see the tangible benefit behind writing.
Yep. Yep.
I had to see the tangible benefit behind going and talking and working with the coach. And once I understood those tangibles and how they fit into me having more fun,
Mm-hmm.
now I'm bought in. I can go do it. And it
Yeah.
wasn't even a matter of price of money because I was throwing away money left and right. It was like, okay, but I wasn't committed. I wasn't doing the work, which makes a difference.
Yeah. That's good. Cool. That's it. This is a whole masterclass. Um, I think yeah, I think sometimes I've also encountered people who they maybe see some things that are manifesting and coming to fruition in your life or my life or just other people, and they think, yeah, I want that. Okay, I'll do that. Since that's what she's doing now and she did that. And I have to remember and like remind all of us, really, including myself, we often are seeing, like, we're seeing that from a lens of that's actually layers and layers and years of work. It's not because this person did like one session with Kashaun or they went to a therapist for 5 sessions. No, it's usually a culmination of this person hired this mentor and then they were going to therapy and then they started working out and then they were also like, it's a lot of things. And so sometimes I think we also minimize, because of our society and because of the rapidness of technology and the nature of communication now, I think we minimize the process. And I think there's a lot of value that gets lost And influencer culture has played a role in this too, I think, especially in the States. But I think there's something that gets lost when we don't value, as one of my friends right now, her and I co-lead like a ministry that we have together. And that's really just us in an attempt to actually offer retreats to other women in the future. It's things we already do together for years as friends. But we said, no, this is what we're really about, is actually taking moments to rest. So, anyways, but she always says, yeah, I'm sitting in it right now. And that's because I do think that's like when you think about marinating. Okay, we'll go to grilling. I'm kind of ready for summer. I don't know. We've had some sunnier weather in Chicago. So I've got my I'm ready. But grilling. So if you want a really great marinade, you often are doing it overnight and for a length of process. It's the difference between, often people want microwave results in a slow roasted, slow smoked form. And they're seeing the Kashaun, who might be a very, luxurious piece of slow roasted, marinated goodness. And they're not realizing that wasn't because she put all of her worries into an easy bake oven and they were magically gone. It's consistent dedication and devotion actually to yourself, and
Mm.
being so devoted to knowing, I know that I'm created for a purpose, so I'm going to make it my mission to be devoted to learning me and to love learning me. We recently changed, we might even change the name of our whole podcast, but we recently changed all of our handles for Educator Aid to Love Learning You. So now on every social media, because that is actually the heart of what we're doing with teams. And what I think many coaches are doing, regardless of your exact title or what arena you play in, I think there's just this pressure right now because there's so much that's so fast in our world, and there's a lot of people who don't understand, just because you watched a TikTok therapist for 2 years during the pandemic doesn't mean you know everything about narcissistic personality disorder and that you can diagnose other people in your life and they're all the problem and you're not.
Listen, this podcast is about to take
No.
a whole nother spin, okay? Can you say that again? Everybody is an expert?
They say, oh, I think you need to go see someone for this. But that's what information, the
That's what it
rapid
does.
information does to us. And then
Information
we somehow
overload.
think, oh, yeah, well, I know about that because of this. Okay, but do you know why, Justine, do you know why you're eating a whole bag of brownies? You still aren't seeing that. Okay. So, anyways, the whole point of me putting that out there is, how do you differentiate between I'm sitting in it and I'm being taken through a process, or I'm stuck? How do you differentiate that? Because I will say there are also times in my journey where I've gone, is this the plateau? Is this as good as my life gets? But I think those are good questions to ask. By the way, I'm putting that out there because I don't want people to feel sorry for me. I'm not a victim. I have wondered that, because you do go on these rabbit trails in your journeys of life that you go, am I on the right track? And
Mm.
so how do people start to know when it's, hey, this is part of the process of healing, versus, no, actually I'm like depressed. And not because, disclaimer, we're not therapists.
Exactly.
Okay, not because we're licensed medical professionals, but just from a woman to woman standpoint, how have you seen that show up for you and or with clients, from that role? Because now I've gone on this rant about microwave results, and but I think that's the part that's missing, is sometimes we don't want to sit in it. We want, well, but I went to a therapy session, I should be happy all the time. And that's human nature. I think part of that's human nature.
Yes.
How do you differentiate between I'm need help and I'm depressed versus, ooh, I'm going through it? Because all of our thresholds are also widely different
Yes.
for pain, for grief. Like,
So here's what I will say. I think that is for that reason. How do I know if I'm stuck or if, if it's just I need a little extra support? That is why I highly advocate for professional support. Someone that is licensed and trained and they have done the work to understand, and it might be the coupling of the educational standpoint and the experiential. They've had to walk it so that when they hear it and they see it and it's showing up, they're able to now very lovingly, very supportingly say, listen, I think you might need additional support. This is one of the conversations that as coaches we have a lot. I
Yeah.
think you need additional support. And that's not my wheelhouse. That's not something that I help you with. Let me connect you with someone that could help guide you through it. And you get the added benefit of continuing the work that we're doing here, when you're ready to pick it up. But that's the difference between someone that is not the the
Right.
insta professional, but
Right.
the one that is actually, kind of done the work, done the due diligence to learn the craft of it. Before I even started practicing coaching, I told my coach, I said, I want to make sure that I do my own work to understand what this platform is about,
Mm,
because I owe it not only to me, but for those that I'm going to serve. And
right.
I went out and I just got credentials and I started to do the work. I started the work because it matters.
Yeah.
It
And
it really
when
matters.
we encounter things that you might see us try in our firms and our practices, that's because we valued it enough in our own journey to say, this was monumental for me. So I have no
Yes,
problem trying to teach clients about this and share this with them, but not
exactly.
because that has to be the thing that works for you. I think there's some standard processes and approaches people can employ, but I think at the end of the day, the more that we can continuously go back to, nobody is going to know you or arguably love you or care about you the way that you can love you, know yourself, or care about yourself. And it doesn't matter if you have the most beautiful marriage in the world, the most beautiful, loving parents, that's great. They're still not going to, like, we're still beholden to knowing ourselves the best, and that is our responsibility solely. And so if that requires you extra support and you're a complex person, which I think everyone is, and we've all
Yes.
been through a lot of experiences in life, then that takes some time and devotion. And you have to be okay with it. So where that has, I know, has been challenging for me in my own journey at times is when I haven't been very loving to myself. So that is harder when you're not in a loving space toward yourself, because part of my really tough realizations that I've had in some of my work over the years is going, you will only allow yourself to be open up to love so much because you really are judging yourself all the time. Like I had to realize that not only was I feeling those feelings and projecting them onto others, I was ultimately being the worst critic and judge of myself. And that when you do identify that, even as jarring as that can be, and you go, but I don't think I'm that way, I don't want to be that way. Yeah, we're all that way.
Well,
And also, you don't have to. Like when you recognize it, it's if you choose to sit and stay and say, well, I'm not going to change that about me. But when I
mm-hmm.
started realizing, no, I'm actually the worst to myself, that was a game changer. And that's also the tough part of it, because you have to be willing to say, and then look back at the mirror and say, that's you too. You're not just all these good things that you put on LinkedIn. That's you
Mm.
too. And that is actually the hardest part, I think, is admitting to ourselves the things that we need to work on.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Um, because we want to come across as being a certain way, right? We want to come across as put together. And then when you gotta, sit yourself down in the seat. And I talk about this, I think quite often, in my circles, because one of the hardest things that I did have to do or get to do was to sit down and have that conversation with myself and say, things are happening. like this, it sucks, and be brutally honest.
Yeah.
But and then at the same time and say, but look at your experiences and look at your outcomes
Mm.
and look at the experiences of others that you say love, and trust, including you. And how's that all that lining up? And just really, I think from that standpoint, it allowed me to understand myself, because I think that sometimes we go seeking validation and approval from everybody else, and we
Mm.
haven't sat in with ourselves to give it to ourselves and say, no, I get it. I understand. And everything that you're doing, it makes sense. However, it's not the best course of action.
Yeah. Yeah.
However, you wouldn't allow someone else to come in and talk to you that way. So why are we doing it here? You wouldn't allow somebody to get
Right.
in your face and say half the things
You
that you
wouldn't
say
even
to
ever
yourself.
talk with them again, probably.
But yet you'll sit there and you will trash yourself, and you think, okay, I'm doing it's just jokingly. Let me tell you something. You're keeping track, you're keeping record, and slowly but surely you're putting that stuff on and you're wearing it, and it's a programming, right? And so I think the value add in that is, don't say anything to yourself that you wouldn't allow anybody else to say.
Mm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If you wouldn't allow anybody, and I'm talking kids, parents, it doesn't matter,
Yeah,
then you don't need to be saying it either.
that's right.
And if you would say it to someone else, if you would say to someone else, hey, I love you, you are beautiful today, why
Mm.
aren't you saying that to yourself?
That's yeah, that's
You
good.
know, taking a moment, like, I love how beautiful, my eyes are in the morning.
Right.
I don't care.
Right.
It
Yeah,
doesn't have to be, but I love me. I know that nobody else can do me better than me.
yeah,
I so love
that's
me,
right. That is right.
right?
We can all say that.
And it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. That way I'm not necessarily looking for the world to validate me. I started with me first.
You go to your home, and our home is our body.
Yeah,
That's our most sacred home on earth, is our body.
it
Um,
really
I mean,
is.
we're all living on borrowed land and borrowed time. So,
Come,
okay. So, pivoting a little, because you made mention of it earlier, and it might be valuable, I think, for some of our listeners, whether they identify as male, female, non-binary, however they identify. But you identify as a woman, and I also know that you're a career changer. So I want to ask a little bit about that because I think it could be very valuable for many people who might be searching right now. Can you tell us a little bit about that part of your journey and how that shift happened for you? Because I know you were in finance, yeah? Finance
supply chain.
or supply chain. Okay.
Yeah.
I knew it was something different than what I have experiences in. So you were in a very much more technical kind of operations type role. How many years did you do that? And then how did you become who you are now? A published author, speaker, you have your own company, which by the way, and we'll have her website, but her company is called Next Step Forward Coach. That's your website,
Mhm.
nextstepforwardcoach.com. So because of the name of that too, and you're the Next Step Forward Coach, tell us how that looked for you and give us some insight about how those shifts happened in your own life.
Sure. I love that question. I want to let you know that that's a
Pivot.
really good one. It's a good one.
Thank you.
Um, so okay, I do. I come from a supply chain management background, and I was in that industry for about 15 years. Um, and of that, I would say about 12 of those years, I had the beauty of working alongside my husband. And
Know that. Yeah.
yes. And so when my husband passed, I found myself now just kind of going back to the organization, trying to refine, my steps and what I'm doing. But then that was one of my truth moments, because one of the things that I talked about with my husband was just that I'm great at this work, but like this is not my jam. and what that would look like. And now entrepreneurship at this point still was not in the cards. I knew that I loved, leading, directing, and then motivating and inspiring others. That's all I had.
And you also
And
have
then,
three children, just so people remember that and they
yes,
understand context. And if you're thinking through your own story as you listen to people, she also had three children
I
and
also have
is
three
still
children
raising those three children.
and still raising them.
Yeah.
So yeah, so this story is gonna get a little crazy, but it's good. It's good. It's crazy good. And so, my husband, he ended up having a car accident, and the car accident deemed fatal. It turned fatal. And so I'm looking at the organization and I'm looking at the response and and I'm just like, is that really what I want my legacy to be? If
Mhm.
something were to happen, I'm just a number. They had another body in my husband's seat before he was even pronounced. I'm looking at he would give himself tooth and nail. I mean, work to the bone and just
Just replaceable.
nothing to show for it. And so I'm like, I asked myself the question, what is it that I want my legacy to represent? What do I want? And I think that was the first time that I started to really look at me and started that journey inward, towards getting back to fun, towards just throwing away everything. I had the titles, I had the money. I mean, it was good. I had
It's
no
through-
reason,
But
no incentive.
it was through wading through tragedy.
Exactly. Then this pitfall hits, and I'm just like, holy crap. And then I say that was my moment. I believe in God, you believe in whoever you want. But I said God just presented me with the alternate scenario because a couple years after my husband passed, my company announced that they're going to close. And then like, okay, well, here, we love the work that you're doing. You're extremely talented. We don't want to give up on this talent. Why don't you go and see if one of our other branches could suit and serve you? So they actually flew me to other locations, me and my family, to go and see if it fit. And then I'm thinking, but hold up, I'm a single mom here. All of my family is here in the Midwest. That does not make sense.
Mm-mm.
I can't do that. And I just didn't feel it. I didn't. So
Did
I
you
knew
feel,
then.
just a curious question,
Mhm.
did you feel like they were trying as a company that they were actually trying to do everything possible to continue to support you, partly because of what had happened with your husband? Do you think there was some semblance of they were being human, or was that more truly because they really
It was
needed
the
your help?
skill. It was the
It
skill.
was because they needed your help. That was
Yeah.
just a curiosity question because a lot of places of work, they do not know how to respond with grief and tragedy.
Oh my gosh.
So
That
sorry.
was that was a
I was just
whole no.
curious. Yeah.
That was a whole learning curve. So, and I mean, and that's a lot of that is my own personal belief, but I don't think it was as much as them responding to the grief because at this point, we are about 2.5, 3 years post accident.
Okay. So
So,
that happened.
they're moving on. And so it was really, you have this talent and this skill, and then I'm selfless by nature. So I wasn't just kind of holding it in. It was let me purge as much of this as I could do to help the entire team. And they're like, we
Yep.
need this. And I understood it. I
Yeah.
understood it. But I also told my husband, I said, look, the only way I'm leaving this job is they're gonna have to pay me to leave. Like we would just say it jokingly. And so I'm sitting there, I'm like, okay, I guess they're paying me to leave. Okay.
All
And
right.
so I said, where else am I going to get another opportunity like this? Where I really have to sit down and take a look at what's in front of me. And so when I did, I said, you could absolutely go, you're going to be fine. But what happens if you stay? Now your whole thing, my whole premise, when I would do my development with my team was bet on yourself before you go and find anybody else to bet on you. You make sure you're front of the line for that. And one of my then employees came to me and they said, well, Kashaun, so listen, you tell us to go and bet on us, but what are you doing? And they put
Woo.
me on the hot seat, and I was just like, okay, listen. But I sat with that question, Justin. I sat with that question, and I'm like, okay, what do I want to do? And I said, if I'm going to continue on this journey, if I'm going to do this, I don't know where it's going to land, but I want it to count. I want it to mean something. And that is really what started me to thinking outside of the box, into entrepreneurship, into coaching. I started off with leadership and development coaching because that's what I knew. That was my
Yeah.
background. That's what
Yep.
I had the experience in. And then I just kind of let it evolve
Mhm.
over the years. But it was really just sitting with myself and deciding, if you want a legacy, you're going to have to create it. It won't be created for you.
Yep.
Um, and then doing the work. So it wasn't like I just, okay, I'm done. I took the years. So when they made the announcement in 2018 to close the company, and we didn't actually close until 2020. So that 2 year span, I'm working. I'm working, I'm saving, I'm doing all these things because now I've got a strategy. And I was still though interviewing, because if something had landed out, I
Mhm.
probably would have just continued on. But I was just like, no, I'm gonna take this path and see where it goes, see where it leads me.
So you were very intentional about building an actual exit strategy from your job.
Mhm.
And
Yep.
underneath that intention, your driving purpose was really, I'm designing my own legacy. And I know that
Yes.
this workplace isn't going to give me that. And
Yes.
that's the hard lesson maybe all of us need to always be reminded of is we often join companies and it might be attractive if they really do have strong cultural values and all of the things. But at the end of the day, it kind of goes back to what we were saying earlier. Nobody's going to look out for your legacy like you. So even if you have the best situation possible, you can't, there are no guarantees, number one. I think that's another reality that we all continuously need to be reminded of in a humble way of
Mm.
all of us, anybody. That could be any one of us on the corner or one paycheck away from this or. And I think when we start to, it's almost like a false sense of security, and it might be a little more prevalent in America of that, oh, I'm good to go. I got the benefits, I got the job. There's nobody who is going to look out for your family like you will. There's
Mm.
nobody who's going to build your legacy like you will. There's nobody who is going to do your inner work and your inner healing like you. Like literally. So it goes back to a lot of self-responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
What I think a lot of healing work is actually about is actually just self-responsibility
It
and
is.
not finding a way to place blame on a company or a person or not that people don't do bad things. There are you can, like you said, you can recognize a name. The way how this company handled this is just shady, or they lied, or they cheated. No, you shouldn't do business dealings with people like that. But also, those are people who, that doesn't mean that that's their only thing about them. And
Mm.
I've learned that even just in business partnerships, right? People do things that are in their own best interest, and they are not going to think about what matters to Kashaun or Justine. They're not going to think about their legacy or their children. They're thinking about themselves. So sometimes I think those of us, and especially usually I have found it to be more male female dynamics. When I've worked in business partnerships, there's a difference because of how I think, and it might be a result of our systems and how they exist right now, but there's a very big difference in how men tend to think and how women tend to think as far as even their value, the things that we experience and who we are and what makes us worthy to go into a place. Um, does that come up for you with coaching with any of your clients? Because I felt I accumulated a lot of masks, especially my 30s going into entrepreneurship, because I had a lot of dealings with men who were like 20 years older than me in business. And so when you also realize that you're being perceived a certain way, you do move differently because you need to do what the client needs. And I don't mean that of compromise my own values. I mean that of, I think that because you said this at the beginning, women tend to be more selfless and put others' needs, and like you said, you're building this company, we throw ourselves into that. I don't know that that is the nature of a lot of men. Not that they're not givers. I think we have different roles.
Mm.
And that also, by the way, if you're non-binary, I'm not discluding you. I'm not excluding anyone. I'm saying that typically how many of us are programmed to behave as women, and I think how when men behave, and in the workplace in particular, I still think it's vastly different. And I don't know that we even maybe realize that in society. Like men come into meetings. I didn't start learning this till I was more in entrepreneurship, and I was working with a lot of men. And I realized I actually have a lot of masculine energy, which isn't bad, but I was also adapting to how they would interact. And that actually isn't who I am. So then you're still masked in a way because you're kind of playing a game. But how do you see that come up? Because you made mention of that. It's definitely something I've seen in myself that I don't see in my partner, who's a man. And it's not a problem for him to prioritize himself. And I'm not saying that to be facetious. He's a very giving, generous person.
Mm.
But my struggles with it are very different than his, as far as saying, oh, okay, I'm okay. I feel I did enough, to help that person or that company or whatever.
So I think my answer to that question is really the pre-programming.
Mhm.
We are trained. We are trained early on to be considerate, to be kind, to be all things feminine.
Don't be mouthy, but if it's a man, speak up and be bold.
You understand? And so we were given permission when we were having different feelings. We received permission to express them, right? To tap into that and explore what it is. And when we get into, the masculine side of that, the first thing we tell them is men don't cry. Men, don't worry about that. What needs to be done? And
Mm.
the thing that has made this more prevalent now is I find myself, or I found myself, realizing earlier on in the transition after I left my career, how much of that masculine energy I had taken on. Uh, Crying, what we don't have time to cry. There's no
Yep,
time for tears. What do we
yep,
need to do?
same. It's almost like I had to give myself permission to start crying again.
Hmm. And but then that tells me too that it's learned, right? So men can do it, if they're given the space and the freedom to do so. But
Right.
women can also get to where they are very structured and fully developed in the space of, just the action detail, or because there's I am that very type A person. I have it. It's like sometimes I got to tone it down, like
Yeah, me
girlfriend,
too.
wait. But I think that it is a conscious balance that needs to happen, right? There's nothing wrong with either of them. They both serve their purpose.
Mhm.
But I think that, to your point, as women, we're bred for it. Like we're bred to get in that space of being creative, and you play and you do all this where they're trained. No, you're gonna go help, you're gonna go work, you're gonna and so that structure is built earlier on. So to ask them to shed that and put it where
What
and
other
do
way
what
is
with
there
it.
of being? Because you think about it, even no, I mean, I'm picturing this even as you're saying it, like how little kids play at school, even if nobody ever told them, but somehow, whether they saw it on TV or they saw it in their home, but you instinctively see that difference because even how boys play often. And again, we're not dismissing if you identify outside of those realms of gender. It's that we all have these energies in us and we're all going to have a different balance of them. And it's something to be aware of. But I will say there's a big difference between how boys even play. So when they're playing, what are they doing? Well, you got to move this dump truck. We got to do this. They're building, they're doing. So
Yes.
it's really in you. And usually the girls are playing with dolls and they're playing house and they're playing cooking. What did I used to play? I used to play teacher and I used to play cashier.
Me too.
Right? Because that's also subconsciously, and we know this from like implicit bias training and all that kind of stuff, subconsciously, because that would have been what we saw our mothers or grandmas do. So even if we saw otherwise, or you have the examples which are beautiful and are necessary, and yes, we need them of all shapes and sizes and colors, it still is going to become ingrained by what you mainly see in your home and usually like in religious institution and school. So whatever narratives are reinforced, even if it's subconsciously or subliminally, you're going to notice, even if you're a girl, and I tended to be more of a tomboy and I wanted to play more sports, I still always felt self-conscious about it, because even in 5th and 6th grade, because I was becoming more developed than even a lot of the other girls, I was taller, I was more developed, and I would be aware of my dad saying, you when you get older, you're very beautiful. Little boys, they're only looking at certain things, right? And from his lens, he's looking out for me. He's teaching me, like, hey, don't be naive about things. But at the same token, then, what am I worried about when actually I was an incredible athlete? I was great. I worked really hard. But at recess, I'm worried because now, and I can pinpoint this. I've done a lot of work on myself and why I think certain ways and all these things. I pinpoint it to, I was able to usually go out at any given recess and beat the entire grade level at basketball, like knockout. But then because I started having crushes on boys and no other girls were really playing basketball with the boys, what do I start getting aware of? Well, these girls are talking about me. I'm not playing this because I actually like these boys and I'm trying to be close to them. I'm playing it and stuffing him because I actually love to play sports. I
Mhm.
wasn't having these feelings of like, oh, let me box you out. Like, it wasn't like that. I'm like 11 years old. So when I think back, though, that's when I became aware of it, because I would go, oh, well, I don't have any little girlfriends or they don't want to play with me, but I like making bracelets too. So you are then met with, even if, right? So as much as even I'm in this realm and I do trainings, especially with schools, even as much as we want to say the inclusive language, which language is always rapidly evolving, we always need to inform each other if we prefer certain things. Just my opinion. Nobody's going to be inside your head and know all your preferences.
Say it again.
Okay. But that's a whole other thing where if we think dismantling the construct of gender or any of these things that are human created, it doesn't take away that we are people and beings that do what we see. So it doesn't, you could take away all the language and verbs and terminology that you want, but there's still going to be those gravitations and things that you notice, because that had nothing to do, it had everything to do with me becoming aware of the fact that at that age, I had started my period. I did have crushes on boys, and I knew that boys had crushes on girls.
Yep.
And it couldn't be about the fun and the pure love of the sport anymore and just dominating, because that's just partly who I am. I'm an aggressive go-getter. It became about, well, now my game is off because I'm afraid this person's watching me and they think I'm trying to steal their little boyfriend.
Yep.
Like it
That's exactly.
becomes, and to me, it's the same exact then crap we see wrapped up differently in the corporate world or in any workplace. It's no different. It's still the games that people play
Say it
when we're
again.
unaware of ourselves. What what advice then would you say, just as a person who has lived becoming a widow, being a single mom of 3 children, being a career woman, and now pivoting and starting your own thing and going after that in the past, through a global pandemic, no less.
Mhm.
Um, what would you offer just as kind of like a final tidbit of, this is what kept me going and what still keeps me going on my worst days? because you've been through a lot, my friend. You've been through a lot, and we all have in different degrees, but you have seen a lot of life that many people don't have to go through. They don't have to.
Mm,
You're like, it's not
that's
just
a
one
good
nugget.
one. No, you have the best questions though. So the advice. I would say, from all of my lenses and all of the many hats, the one thing uh, that I would have liked to have heard more of is don't be afraid to bet on yourself.
Mm,
And, that means a lot of different things to different people. But for me, it would have just meant that, I have what it takes. And even though life has, handed a lot of very, you know, outrageous scenarios, overall, though, there's more going for you
yeah.
than that is coming against you. And so just keep going. And I'm hearing it more now. But it's the thing that I would tell anyone if they're sitting in there, they're thinking, this corporate career is just, it's not working for me. I don't know where to start. Go bet on yourself. What would it be to bet on you? Don't worry about anybody else. What would it mean to bet on you right now?
Right now.
I just lost my husband. I don't know what I'm going to do. What would it mean to bet on you and say, I'm not going to let this thing get the best of me? What would
Some
that
people,
mean?
for some of you, that might literally mean you're betting on yourself. For me, at one point, my betting on myself was finally taking my first vacation alone for 4 days and shutting down. That was over a decade ago. I've never looked back. No. No, but that the betting on yourself, you don't also have to think of it as this massive shift. So we're talking as people who have changed careers, but you don't have to, that doesn't have to be you. Your betting on yourself could be, I've never traveled out of the country and I'm going to get a passport and I'm going to travel for the first time. Like it could be any number of what you're betting on with yourself, but there's something in there in all of us that um, we could be betting on ourselves in more positive ways and in ways that I share your belief in God, in ways that God really wants us to be happy. I tend to have a belief more and more. I know beliefs change and flow, but this is my belief currently that more and more I grew up being taught about heaven and hell as concepts and places.
Mm.
And I actually think that we have the keys to the kingdom when we choose to really fully surrender to God. And we either create our own heaven or we create our own hell.
Oh, say that again.
Because to your point, it's what are you mainly fixating on? Are you fixating on this one awful thing that happened in your life? Or are you looking at the whole picture and actually see all these other things? Or is it so cloudy? I think that's why I also asked that question, because I had those moments. I had those moments of severe grief with my mom, and I still do at times, where you wonder, is this because like I'm really, really depressed, or is it a moment in a wave of grief I'm having right now? And that's making it harder for me to focus on what's going right in my life. Like there's a lot that you really do have to sit with. And we were talking a little before we hit record about journals and stuff. Oh, we talked about them in here too. I showed them all. But like even those practices, it can just be these gentle nudges. For me, betting on myself was what I told Kashaun earlier, which is I had to get back to doing my daily writing pages to empty out my brain. And I wasn't doing them. So like there's things that along your path, I think that's such a brilliant advice, because you have to consistently ask yourself, how am I betting on me? And on some days that means my bet on me today was going out and taking a walk and I got the dishes done. I bet on me today. I did enough for me.
And that's enough.
Like
And that's enough.
that's and that I think is also one of the battles that could be kind of multi-layered when you haven't separated yourself from who you are and what you do. I think that gets conflated in our society as well with career. A career doesn't mean that means you're walking in your purpose. It might mean you have a good career, But what does a good career mean? To your point earlier,
Mhm.
if you have the benefits and the pay you want, but then you still aren't able to have fun or you have no time for yourself, is that actually what you want in your life? Or is that what
Mhm.
somebody else's idea of success was for you? Existential questions that I still have no answers for after millions of podcast. No, it's the being and knowing that the people I get to talk with, that we're not alone on the journey. And so
Absolutely.
I hope anybody listening, I hope that you experience that as well. What I do want to ask you, I know we've been bantering a while, but I want to ask you before we close out. Um, I usually like to do at the end, I want to do frequently asked questions. And yours, I did want to ask you a specific one. What are some frequently asked questions that you get as a mother of twins and also um, being a career changer? What are some frequently asked questions that you get? And then we're going to do a final, we always say unapologetically promoting yourself and your purpose. So we'll ask you all the ways to find you, all the things you're working on. But tell us what, yeah, that question, the other question first, what that looks like for you as far as
Okay.
frequently asked questions, being a mom of twins, and then also being a career changer.
So I'll start with the being a mom of twins. Um, it the question that I get the absolute most, okay, just for context, I am all of 5'4" and 115 pounds on a good day, okay? And they say, how did
Hey,
you
she's a
carry?
petite lady, you all.
Small. They say, how did little old you manage to not carry one baby, but two babies at the same time?
I probably
And
asked. I probably did.
um, I would say I don't know. I think God favored me because the reality is not only did I have twins, but I am a twin. And it's supposed to skip a generation.
That's right. Wow.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
So
So your most
I
common question is, how did you actually carry and
how
birth?
did I carry a boy and a girl? Like, because God wanted me to. I mean, this is his
Right.
design. I'm just here for it.
It's
That's
the
that's
favor of
really
the
what it
Lord.
is. That's,
Okay.
that's
That's
what it is.
fair. That's a good question. Good question.
Um, and then in terms of my career, the one question that I get is, how did you do it?
Mhm.
And I think it goes back to that advice. When I really looked at um the whole thing that happened with my husband and getting that raw realization of what legacy meant in terms of my career, that just wasn't enough.
Yeah.
And I thought, yes, in spite of the curveballs and everything that has come, like I get to write something here. I want to make sure that if I'm writing it, it's going to be doggone good. And
Mm-hmm.
so I'm going all out for me. And I don't know, what's coming of this. The business has done some amazing things, but it didn't come, I'd say, absent of the learning curve. It didn't come like this business process has been very humbling.
Every day. Ooh.
So, I just say, if you're looking for something to get into and you think it's going to be easy, you're going to suit sell. I don't think I would say this is not for you because there's always
No
something.
overnight success. There's no such
It
thing
is not, I
overnight.
don't care what the Insta world tells you. So, just, I say follow your heart. Your heart knows the way. It always does.
Mm,
And just be courageous enough to do that, even if you can't see. Sometimes I can only see moment by moment. I can't see the entire picture.
yep.
But I give myself that permission to say, okay, let's go have fun with this. Let's see where it goes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I play with it. I play with it every day.
She goes to her 8-year-old self, you all. That's her secret. She says, "How am I gonna have fun?"
How am I gonna have
That's
fun?
that's her $1 million secret sauce. So let's talk a little bit unapologetically living out my purpose. Where can we find you? What are some other things you're working on? Let me do my screen share thing really quick, my nerdy screen share thing. This is her website, you all. So we will link this in the show notes, but this is her book that recently came out. So you guys have a visual. And she is part of these wonderful organizations that she has certifications in, etc. You can see all the things. What else are you working on besides being out and promoting your book, which I know just released in February?
Yeah, so I'm actually excited. So I have a couple of things. I'm working on my new academy where I am partnering with new and aspiring entrepreneurs to they're going to learn, what it means to go in business those first 5 years, what to expect, and how to navigate the terrains of that. And then I'm often asked, how do you get beside yourself good enough to go and speak? And so, working on really training and teaching some of the speaker basics and how to present and, how to find your true authentic voice in a way that works for you. So those are a couple of things that I'm working on outside of coaching. And then the main thing is platforms, speaking, sharing the message of empowerment, the value add of going after, what it is that you want to do, being non-negotiable. That's my favorite.
Mhm.
And then, just spreading the message that the journey isn't supposed to be easy. It wasn't designed to be easy. It's designed to be possible, and just showing people what that possibility is and how to get there.
How would we? This is where I come back to the yin and yang. How would we really appreciate the beauty if we didn't experience and see some of the ugly? And, you know, not everything about betting on yourself is always the most beautiful,
Oh man.
but you learn. Whoo, do you learn, learn, learn? And if you are a person who likes to learn, that is one encouragement that I ask people to when they start to ask specific questions about entrepreneurship is you have to be a devoted learner. If you're not a person who really likes to learn and explore, I kind of call it explorer, being like a modern day explorer. If
Mhm.
that's not you and you don't like going on little rabbit trails and adventures and going, oops, oh, that didn't work out. If you're not able to do that, then yeah, no, you need to think about the vehicle that you create to make your dreams a reality because that isn't everybody's personality and it doesn't need to be. There are also people who they might hear this conversation and go, I'm perfectly content to go clock in at the same factory I've worked at for 40 years and I'm okay with that. And I go out here and I do all this stuff in my community. Like it's also not as long as you feel fulfilled and you feel happy. I think that's the one essence of your message I really got today is as long as you are going back to who you are, who God has made you to be, and you are always revisiting that, you can't really go wrong with betting on yourself. Doesn't mean it's going to
That's
be easy, but you can't go wrong with betting on yourself. And drop the mic. No.
right.
Hey,
Mic drop.
look, as always, I find it very difficult to tell my guests goodbye because, we can
Yes.
just talk forever. But I thank you for your time and your energy, your vulnerability, just your willingness to share. And I'm so glad that you all, the subscribers, our guests, who we get to sit down with once a month and have these conversations, that you get to be here and you get to meet another person virtually that maybe you wouldn't have known about. And maybe you wouldn't have known that there's somebody out here with a coach with these particular experiences that just happened to be here. So I hope that you found value. And as we always say here, let's continue to get compassionately curious together. Take care, and we will see y'all next time. Thank you so much, Kashaun.
Thank you. Thank you.